Whispering Pines, a name that once evoked images of serenity and natural beauty, now synonymous with dread and despair. A quaint name for a village gripped by terror. The transformation was as sudden as it was inexplicable. Nestled beside a dark and ancient forest, it was once a place of peace. The villagers lived in harmony with nature, their lives intertwined with the rhythms of the forest. Laughter echoed through the trees. The children, carefree and joyous, would play from dawn till dusk, their giggles a constant melody. Children played in the dappled sunlight. The forest canopy filtered the sun's rays, creating a magical play of light and shadow. But that was before the shadows fell. An ominous change swept through the village, altering its very essence. Now a palpable fear hung in the air, thick and suffocating. The once vibrant village was now cloaked in an eerie silence. Villagers spoke in hushed tones, their faces etched with worry. Conversations that once brimmed with laughter and stories were now filled with anxiety and dread. Sleep offered no escape, only haunted by nightmares of glowing eyes and chilling whispers. The nights were long and restless, filled with the sounds of unseen terrors. Something lurked in the woods, something dark and hungry. The villagers could feel its presence, a malevolent force that watched and waited. The forest, once a source of life and sustenance, had become a place of dread. Its once familiar paths now seemed twisted and foreign. Hunters returned empty-handed, their faces pale with unspoken fear. The game they once relied on had vanished, as if the forest itself had turned against them. Children were forbidden to wander too far. The freedom they once enjoyed was now a distant memory, replaced by strict boundaries and constant vigilance. The woods held a darkness they could not comprehend. It was as if the very soul of the forest had been corrupted. Whispering Pines was trapped, caught in the grip of a terror it could not explain. The villagers felt isolated, cut off from the world beyond the forest. Hope, like the fading light of dusk, seemed to be slipping away. Each day brought new fears, and the nights were filled with the sounds of the unknown. The villagers prayed for a miracle. They gathered in the small chapel, their voices rising in desperate supplication. They prayed for someone to save them. They prayed for Hana. Hana, the village healer, was their last hope. She was known for her wisdom and her deep connection to the forest. The villagers believed that if anyone could save them, it was her. Hana had always been a figure of strength and comfort. Her knowledge of herbs and remedies had healed many, and her presence brought a sense of calm. But even Hana was troubled by the darkness that had descended upon Whispering Pines. She spent her days gathering herbs and searching for answers. The forest, which had once been her ally, now seemed to resist her efforts. The plants she relied on were withering, and the animals she communicated with had grown silent. Hana knew that the source of the darkness lay deep within the forest. She had heard the whispers, felt the eyes watching her. She knew that she would have to confront whatever lurked in the shadows. The villagers looked to Hana with hope and fear. They knew that her journey would be perilous, but they also knew that she was their only chance. They offered her their prayers and their strength, knowing that she would need all the help she could get. As Hana prepared for her journey, she felt a mix of determination and dread. She knew that the fate of Whispering Pines rested on her shoulders. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenges ahead. With a final look at the village, Hana stepped into the forest. The trees closed around her, and the shadows seemed to deepen. She could feel the weight of the villagers' hopes and fears pressing down on her. As she walked deeper into the forest, the air grew colder and the light dimmer. The whispers grew louder, and the feeling of being watched intensified, but Hana pressed on, driven by the need to save her village. She knew that the journey would be long and difficult, but she was prepared to face whatever lay ahead. For the sake of Whispering Pines, for the sake of the villagers who depended on her, Hana would confront the darkness and bring back the light. With each step, Hana's resolve grew stronger. She was determined to uncover the source of the terror and put an end to it. The fate of Whispering Pines depended on her, and she would not let them down. As Hana's silhouette disappeared into the depths of the forest, the villagers watched with bated breath. They knew that their fate was now in her hands, and they prayed that she would succeed. And so Whispering Pines waited, caught between hope and fear, as their last hope ventured into the heart of the darkness. strange occurrences began subtly. At first, it was just a feeling, a sense that something was not quite right. The villagers of Whispering Pines, nestled deep within the ancient forest, were accustomed to the rhythms of nature, but this was different. It was as if the very air had changed, carrying with it an undercurrent of unease. A sudden chill in the air, even on the warmest days, sent shivers down their spines. It was as if the forest itself was exhaling a breath of dread, a cold whisper that seeped into their bones. Milk curdling before its time, a sign that something was amiss. The villagers, who relied on their livestock for sustenance, found their daily routines disrupted. The milk, usually fresh and nourishing, turned sour and undrinkable within hours. Unexplained noises in the night, the once familiar sounds of the forest were now accompanied by eerie echoes, strange rustlings and distant, unidentifiable cries. The nights, once peaceful, became a time of heightened anxiety, whispers on the wind, too faint to decipher, yet heavy with malice. The villagers spoke in hushed tones, sharing their fears and suspicions. Then the nightmares started. Vivid, terrifying dreams plagued the villagers. Each night, they were visited by visions of horror, dreams so real that they woke up drenched in sweat, their hearts pounding in their chests. They dreamt of a darkness that consumed everything in its path, a relentless, all-encompassing void that swallowed the light and left nothing but despair in its wake. A darkness with eyes that glowed red in the shadows. These eyes, piercing and malevolent, seemed to watch their every move, even in their dreams. A darkness that whispered their names. The villagers could hear it, a soft, insidious murmur that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Fear became a constant companion. Livestock went missing, vanishing without a trace. The villagers searched the forest, but found no signs of struggle, no tracks, nothing to explain the disappearances. Healthy animals found drained of blood, their eyes wide with terror. It was as if some unseen predator was stalking the village, leaving behind only death and fear. Panic spread through the village like wildfire. The once tight-knit community began to fracture, suspicion and paranoia taking root. Neighbors who had known each other for years now eyed each other with distrust.
The elders, their faces etched with worry, spoke of ancient legends. They gathered in the village square, recounting tales passed down through generations, stories of a time when the forest was not just a home, but a place of great danger.
Legends of a powerful demon that resided within the forest, a being of immense power and malevolence, said to awaken when the balance of nature was disturbed. The demon, they said, fed on fear. It thrived on the terror of its victims, growing stronger with each frightened heartbeat. It grew stronger with every terrified heart. The more the villagers feared, the more powerful the demon became, a vicious cycle that seemed impossible to break.
Whispering Pines, once a beacon of peace, was becoming its feast. The village, once filled with laughter and life, was now a place of shadows and silence. The villagers were trapped, their fear fueling the very darkness that threatened to consume them. They felt helpless, caught in a nightmare from which there seemed to be no escape. Their hope dwindled with each passing day. The once vibrant community was now a ghost of its former self, each day a struggle to survive the unseen terror that lurked in the shadows. The villagers knew that something had to be done, but what? The answer seemed as elusive as the whispers on the wind. And one stormy evening, as fear tightened its grip on Whispering Pines, a stranger arrived. The village had been plagued by an unseen terror for weeks, and the once lively streets were now shrouded in an eerie silence. The villagers who once thrived on the harmony of nature now cowered in their homes, afraid to venture out after dusk. She was young, barely a woman, with eyes as dark as the forest itself. Her presence was both a beacon of hope and a reminder of the unknown dangers that lurked in the shadows. The villagers watched her with a mix of curiosity and trepidation, wondering if she was the savior they had been praying for. A worn leather satchel hung across her shoulder, and a silver sword gleamed at her hip. The sword, though simple in design, seemed to hum with a power of its own, as if it had a story to tell. The satchel, heavy with the weight of countless battles, held the tools of her trade herbs, talismans, and ancient scrolls that spoke of forgotten lore. This was Hana, the demon hunter. Her reputation had preceded her, whispered in hushed tones by those who had heard of her exploits. She was known to face the darkest of creatures, emerging victorious time and again. But this village, with its ancient curse, would test her like never before. Word of the village's plight had reached her, carried on the wind. The tales of whispering pines had traveled far and wide, reaching the ears of those who understood the gravity of the situation. Hannah had felt a pull, an undeniable urge to come to their aid, driven by a sense of duty and a desire to protect the innocent. Drawn by the whispers of fear and the promise of confronting an ancient evil, she had traveled for days to reach them. The journey had been arduous, filled with treacherous paths and unseen dangers, but Hannah was no stranger to hardship. Every step she took was a testament to her unwavering resolve. Her face, though young, held a stoic determination, hardened by years of battling the things that lurked in the shadows. Each scar on her body told a story of a battle fought and won, a reminder of the sacrifices she had made. Her eyes, though dark, held a glimmer of hope, a promise that she would not rest until the village was safe.
The villagers, desperate for hope, gathered around her. Their faces, etched with worry and fatigue, looked to her as their last chance. Mothers clutched their children tightly, while the elders whispered prayers to the gods, hoping that Hannah was the answer to their pleas. Their eyes, filled with a mixture of fear and desperate hope, followed her every move. They had seen many come and go, but none had the aura of confidence that Hannah exuded. She moved with purpose, her every action deliberate, as if she could already see the path to their salvation.
Hannah listened intently as they recounted their experiences, her gaze never wavering. Each story added a piece to the puzzle, helping her understand the nature of the demon that plagued them. She asked questions, probing for details that might seem insignificant to the untrained eye, but were crucial to her. She could sense the palpable fear that clung to them. It was a fear that had seeped into their very bones, making them prisoners in their own homes. Hannah knew that to defeat the demon, she would first have to break the hold of fear that it had over the villagers.
"I will help you," she said, her voice calm but resolute. Her words were a balm to their frayed nerves, a promise that they were not alone in their fight. She spoke with a conviction that left no room for doubt, her confidence infectious. "I will face this demon and bring peace back to your village." Her declaration was met with a murmur of approval, a collective sigh of relief. For the first time in weeks, the villagers felt a glimmer of hope, a belief that the darkness could be vanquished.
Her words, spoken with quiet confidence, resonated deeply with the villagers. They had been living in fear for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to hope. Hannah's presence was a reminder that there was still good in the world, still people willing to fight for what was right. Sent a ripple of hope through the fearful crowd. It was as if a weight had been lifted from their shoulders, a burden they had been carrying for far too long. They began to see a future where the sun would shine again, where their children could play without fear. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the villagers dared to believe that they might survive the darkness. They looked to Hannah not just as a demon hunter, but as a beacon of hope, a symbol of resilience and courage. And as the stormy evening gave way to a new dawn, they knew that with Hannah by their side, they had a fighting chance.